Hello, everybody. Welcome to the principal's office. And this is a bonus session in the principal's office. My name is Jamal Maxim. I'm an igniter of champion leaders. I help aspiring school leaders make the shift out of the classroom and go to the principal's office and stay there. And so today, with this bonus session, I have the incredible Alana Ruoso, who is going to share her story about how toxic bosses hide in plain sight. And so, Alana, this is actually our first time really meeting and having conversation. You know, we met on social media, which is one of the benefits of social media is you can meet people and connect with awesome people and hear their story and really make transformation together. And so when I read your post, Alana, about your experience and how you and your talks and how you help people, I knew that your message needed to be heard by a broader audience, but also I knew it would resonate with the people that I serve. And so just take a second and introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Jamal. I love this platform that you've created. And yeah, I'm a career and success coach in Toronto, Canada. And I'm also a branding and graphic design expert. And I've worked in the creative field for many, many years. And I've kind of done both, doing a lot more coaching in the last little while. And part of my creative career has taken me to some really interesting jobs, some amazing jobs, some not so great jobs, and some jobs that had me, crying in the backseat of my car at lunch hour, those kind of things. And I appreciate all the experiences I've been through, and I love all of them. But some of them have been kind of epic, and one most recently has been really life-changing, life-altering. And so I've decided to start speaking a little bit more about that story in the hopes of helping other people.
Wow, that's really awesome. You have a lot of great experience, and a lot of times like you were saying, we have these life altering
Mhm.
experiences that can shake us. And what really touched me just now is you said that you've had some experiences that left you crying in your car.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's unfortunate that there are environments and experiences that can cause us to have that kind of reaction. So
Mhm.
tell me some of the things that you experienced and how you navigated through that experience.
Sure. Well, speaking of kind of my most recent experience, because as I said, I've had some experiences that were actually amazing. But what I found interesting is with the tough experiences, there is a little bit there's some parts in our culture that really kind of celebrate the struggle. I saw one woman post, a young woman post about how she was crying in her car at lunch hours, many lunch hours, to work for actually a different beauty brand that I worked in, and she thought it was all worth it. It was amazing. And my heart bled a little bit for that, because I'm not sure about that. And it's different for everybody, but my experience is, I about in 2018 landed a really great job in the beauty industry, working for a very large cosmetic company here in Canada, running their creative department. um, Loved my boss at the time, the team. I was so excited because what I loved was, as soon as I met the people I was working with, everyone was super competent, super accomplished, very high achieving team. And for the first almost 2 years, the job was really great. I learned so much, really exciting. I mean, there were literally days I got paid to shop in Sephora. So for some women, some people out there, that's kind of like, it's amazing. Um, and then things really changed quickly. So my boss left. There was a long gap without having that role filled, which was actually fine, because again, everyone was so competent and high performing that we just pulled it together. And I'd love to work hard. I'm naturally born for that, high achieving, but I don't really at this point in my life want to be in that state of struggle, or really in
Mhm.
a deep painful position. And so then a new boss came in, and immediately it became really, really challenging. And so I know we've titled this episode "How Toxic Bosses Hide in Plain Sight," in which what was really interesting is, at first, this person was very eager to be accommodating, eager to be positive, was constantly talking about how she wanted to help us. And so there's this, they kind of show up. I like the analogy. They show up with like a tray of cupcakes in hand. So it's almost like they're trying to make everything happy. It's like it's going to be this great experiences. And you're like, wow, this person could really, be my friend. My intuition was kicking in a little bit. How she got into the role really quickly was unusual. And overall, the company really was starting to move more into with the pandemic, a people-pleasing culture, whereas it was working, there was less people and there was work, like way more, the workload just exponentially grew. And so then this person came in, and that's really when my world started to crumble.
Mm. So it was with the change of leadership,
Yes.
and you were saying that with this new leader, she came in with the cupcake in hand, almost kind of to butter you up and to sweeten everybody and to present herself as one way, but
Yes.
in actuality, she began to act differently.
It's exactly it. And that duality is really what, especially in the corporate world, becomes really disarming, because they're
Mhm.
presenting one facade. And what became really upsetting was other people, other leadership people in the company were believing the facade. Meanwhile, I was completely suffering, and I'm only going to speak for myself in this conversation. So I
Yeah.
can't speak to the rest of the other people's experiences. But what became really quickly noticeable is that more was never enough. So it didn't matter what I did, how much I spun my wheels, how much work I pumped out. It was never going to be enough, because she was a classic people pleaser. There was other things I think going on, but there was definitely that need to just keep going. She bragged about working 14 hours a day. I'm
Oh my
not sure
gosh.
what she's doing for 14 hours a day. This is the beauty industry. We're not saving lives. So it's like, it was a little bit confusing. And had that expectation of us, was always sending the emails at 2 o'clock in the morning on the weekend. Just go, 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 never say no. And so that, of course, was going to lead to burnout, because we were already working crazy hours. We actually had a lot more work during the pandemic. Things exponentially grew for us. And so it was just never ending. And by November of last year, my body really was like, I can't do this anymore. I was
Mhm.
having such anxiety. I couldn't sleep, that I had to call my doctor and say, I got a problem here. And at first, I just wanted to take a week off because I needed to recalibrate, because I'd been working so insanely. And she said, no, you need at least 6.
Wow. Wow. You said so much in that. Man. And so you had this supervisor that basically
Mm-hmm.
was a workaholic. And some people try to front that or present that as being an overachiever, or I'm out here on
Yes.
my grind, and
Yes.
getting into that. But really, she didn't have balance. And
Yeah.
because she lacked balance, and I don't know if she had a life outside of work, you never know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because she lacked balance and made the work the entirety of her DNA, meaning,
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming, because what it sounds like is that she was pulling her value out of being a supervisor in her job and looking for the accolades and the attention that comes from that. And because of that, she had an unhealthy relationship with her leadership position. And then
Mm-hmm.
that caused her to have unrealistic expectations on you, sending emails at different kind of nights, and nothing is good enough, and not letting you take time off. And
Yes.
that's
That's exactly
unfortunate.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
that's
nailed it.
yeah. And that's kind of unfortunate, because that's not what leadership is. And
No.
unfortunately, so many people have this warped perspective of what a leader is and what a leader does. I was
Mhm.
in a discussion on Clubhouse, and I heard someone say that to be a good leader, you had to be the first one to arrive and the last one to leave. And so I understand in startup phases you may have to do that, but that's not the lifestyle of a leader. You know, if you're going to be the first one to arrive, then you need to be the first one to leave. And if you're going to be the last one to arrive, then be the last one to leave. But you can't burn it at both ends, because like you were saying, that leads to burnout, and it leads to bad leadership, because you
Absolutely.
begin to feel like people are being lazy or not putting forth the effort or don't care, because as the leader, that person has the unhealthy relationship with their position and with what leadership is all about.
Yeah, that is so well said. It's really not leadership. It becomes they're then a taskmaster, and you're
Yeah.
set up to fail. So the reason why it's so toxic is because if you can't do enough to fulfill their needs, you constantly feel like a failure in your role.
Yeah.
And then your value of your own self-worth goes down. And
Mhm.
how can you actually do your job well from that space, right? It's impossible. So
Right.
and it's crazy because I know I'm really good at what I do. So I hadn't gotten this far in my career if I hadn't been. And so, but then you have these experiences and they do chip away at you. And even though you consciously you're like, this is really not, this doesn't say anything about who I am as a creative leader or as a manager myself, it's you're so physically exhausted and emotionally drained that you cannot see things accurately at all, and that's also
Mm.
where the anxiety starts to really bubble up, and then you're just, you're not sleeping.
Wow. Now, during while you were dealing with this, because I know we're
Yeah.
speaking about your experience, did any
Mhm.
of your coworkers say anything to you? Did they talk about what they were experiencing? To so because sometimes when you're dealing with a toxic supervisor, that
Yeah.
and you're in that environment where nothing is ever good enough and you're questioned all the time, sometimes you, like you were saying, you start to feel like, is it me? Am some
Yeah.
wrong? So did
Yes.
anybody else have that same experience to confirm that it wasn't you, that it was just the supervisor?
I all I'll really say is it definitely was not just me. However, I did, to your point, really question whether I was overreacting, just making too much of something. And what really helped me was actually talking to someone I used to work with at a different company who coincidentally was going through something similar. And
Mm,
that person had so much help and advice to offer me. So anyone in a questioning their toxic workplace situation, my one piece of advice would be to talk to someone who you think may be going through something similar, reach out. And this is why we're having this conversation today, because
yeah.
this was someone who was super strong, super resilient, one of the best leaders I've ever worked with going through something really, really debilitating. And so she helped me remember that the boss that I was working with, that was her goal, was to make me uncomfortable and question things. The goal of a
Wow.
toxic person is to dismantle you.
Wow. Wow.
Right. So if you're working with someone and you're constantly feeling like garbage and you feel like you're falling apart under this leadership, that is saying something about them. It's not about you, you
Yeah.
know?
Wow, that really struck a chord. The goal of a toxic leader is to dismantle
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That, I
When you
mean, it
think,
gives me
wow,
like chills because it's what I've witnessed. And as you know, an amazing leader, they want to build you up.
yes,
They want you to feel amazing at the end of the day and feel productive and be valued. So the opposite of that is the toxic leader.
wow. So if their goal is to devalue you
Mhm.
as an individual, and
Mhm.
imagine being a leader, having a leadership position, but then
Mhm.
being devalued by the leader
Yeah.
who's leading you,
Mhm.
how does that look to the, because what you're saying kind of is giving me some flashbacks um of a
Uh,
supervisor that I had, man, a couple of supervisors that I had, oh my gosh, one when
yeah.
I was teaching and another when I was a principal. So if you're
Mm.
constantly being devalued
Yeah.
and you're in a leadership position and you're
Mhm.
being devalued by your leader,
Mhm.
how do you think the people who are watching you respond to being devalued like that?
I'm such an empath that when I could see other people feeling devalued and it was really hard for me. That was also exceptionally draining, is seeing how it was affecting other people. And what was really frustrating was this boss I had was protected. There was we were told or I was told as soon as she began that she was not going anywhere. There was problems from
Mm,
I expressed challenges right away and was told she's not going anywhere. So in those words, literally. So I knew that I was really in a difficult position because I was
yeah.
doing and so I did my best to maneuver, manage. I pulled every coaching trick I knew out of my hat, right? In terms of just keeping the peace and things like that. But it becomes, that's the thing about why the word toxic is so good. It does seep into everything. It seeps into your work. It seeps into the workplace. The whole company can change. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not for the better.
Wow. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that you did to
Yeah.
navigate through the situation? Because I know you were like trying to respond and learn on the
Mm-hmm.
spot. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like you had a formula, a step-by-step formula. Do this, do that, do this.
Yep.
So, but how did you find yourself navigating through that toxic environment? And then when did the second part is, when did you realize it was time to exit versus
Yeah.
stay there and fight it out?
Yeah. And here, yeah, I'm a fighter. So I'm a
Yeah.
non-quitter. I just, yeah. So that, I think, that's one thing I'd really like to say for that. I felt like I was failing and giving up if I was going to leave. That
Mm,
was just, and that's the warped, stuck in corporate culture feeling. But what I did do was first was taking that initial 6 weeks off. So if possible, if you find yourself in this toxic workplace situation, see what you can do to take time off for your mental, physical health. That was really transformational. It was super helpful. And during that time, I made the most of it and really reflected on a lot of things and completely disconnected. I mean, the company took my laptop and cell phone and everything away. And I was like, yay, take it. I don't want to look at it, right? I
right.
don't need
Thank you.
I don't need Outlook dinging at 2 a.m, right? So the time off, unfortunately, I was back in the office 2 days before I got a very passive aggressive email from my boss. I was on reduced hours when I returned, so just 5 hours a day as part of my healthcare protocol. And I was told 2 days in that I wasn't taking on enough projects, that I was delegating too much, and I wasn't basically living up to my role.
Mm,
And so that to me was like, this person is, I interpret it, my interpretation was a retaliation over taking the time off. And this was not healthy, not healthy at all. So
wow.
then, and I mean, it was devastating. And then it just got, it got worse. And when it reached when I realized I was going to have to leave was when performance plan time came along. In 2019, our team executed about 200-ish projects. And then in 2020, we did over 330. So
Mm,
we did
wow.
almost 50%. If I could give it some metrics, like we just worked our butts off and did some amazing work for a huge launch that was coming up in January 2021. And so that point, I was just thrown under the bus in terms of what was said about me and lies, packs of lies.
Wow.
So
Let's
at that point, I was like, okay,
let's
we can't
pause
keep
right
doing
there.
this. Yeah,
Let's pause right there before you
yeah,
before you
yeah,
before you
yeah,
get to the when you recognize
yeah,
there's time to have an exit plan.
yeah.
Because what you're saying is so real and it happens in education. Oh my gosh. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you might as well have been a school principal. And
Yes.
so two things you just said.
Okay.
One, your supervisor said you delegated too much.
Yes.
And then the other thing was, man, okay, let's speak on that first. I
Yeah.
mean, how can you as a leader delegate
Yeah.
too much? I mean, how
Yeah.
does that even compute?
Oh, it was hilarious. Literally, that's what she said it and multiple times. I had a really small team, but So one of the things I've personally had to work on, what I love about this conversation is I used to be a people pleaser, and I'm talking about people pleasers being sometimes toxic leaders. I used to overwork people and just go, I was very insecure and would go above and beyond. And so this was something I started to shut down years ago in my life, wasn't working for me. Done a lot of that personal development work to figure that out. And so one of the things I used to do in my younger years in my career was take on too many tasks and take it all on and never delegate. So
You
I
must
thought it
know me
was
very well.
and I was like, so I thought it was hilarious and ironic. And I thought this was like completely a message. Then I'm being told that I'm delegating too much. And so part of me actually thought it was hilarious because I thought the one thing I've actually tried to personally achieve in my career, I am now being told was something really bad. And I was being punished for it. And I was being told that it was the wrong thing to do, which of course makes no sense because you understand leadership. You've been studying it forever and teaching it, and you need to delegate what you're good at, what the things you're not efficient at to someone else. And I always try and keep my team in their zone of genius. I try and operate in
Yes.
my zone of genius and do my best. So it's like we had crazy fast turn lines. So just to keep things quick. So yeah, the delegating too much was yeah, I was completely like gobsmacked from the whole experience. So that happened. Yeah. So that's
Wow.
a red flag. If your boss is telling you you're delegating too much, and meanwhile, she didn't do any of her own projects, she made everyone else do it because she couldn't do them herself. So I just thought this was a huge red flag.
Wow.
Yeah.
Delegating too much.
Delegating too much.
Man. And the funny thing is, our backgrounds are so similar, but just different
Mm-hmm.
industries, same
Yeah.
same stuff, different
Yeah.
name. And I used to be a people pleaser. I
Mm-hmm.
was exactly like what you were saying. I would go above and beyond, because I have a heart just to help people, to serve, to see people live to their fullest
Yeah.
potential. So I would do too much. And I had to learn the art of saying no. And I had to learn that no is actually freeing because it keeps me from overcommitting to stuff so I can focus on the things I need to commit to and be good at it. And so
100%.
yeah, so you come from that background and then you learn and develop the skill of delegating, which is not easy because one, when you're very task oriented and used to operating at a certain
Yeah.
way, it takes a high degree of trust on your end to really release and let people do what they do, even though it's their zone of genius. You're still wondering
Mm-hmm.
if it's going to come out right.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
you have to teach people and prepare them for delegation. So they have to be taught and developed not only to handle that project, but to be able to lead that project. So they're not asking you something every 10 minutes or waiting on your approval for every single thing. So you put the time in to develop them, put the time in to work on yourself, and then you release the stuff so that the team runs more smoothly.
Yeah.
And then now you get someone who says you're doing it too much when we're doing exactly what you were supposed to do. And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, so
Yes.
to me, that's amazing. So I lost the second question I was going to ask. I should have wrote it down,
Oh,
but because you said something else before because we were
um,
on our way to you exiting, but you said delegated too much, and then you said something else right after that that really stuck out. And so,
something
yeah,
definitely, I don't know if it was talking about the quantity of projects or, yeah, I'm not sure where we were, but I
yeah,
definitely, at that moment started to realize that I was set up to fail.
yes. Yes. And that's a hard place to be because when you don't want to quit, when you want to be hopeful
Yeah.
that, hey, this is going to turn out good, I can just be nice, be kind, love on people. They'll eventually come around. They're probably just
Yes.
going through something. But then to recognize that it's almost time to exit and to deal with people trying to almost kill your influence
Yeah.
by speaking lies against you and making personal attack. I know you didn't say personal attacks. I'm adding the personal
Oh no,
attacks.
you can throw personal attacks in there. You can throw that right in there because one of the things she said to me was I had to, and this is literally a direct quote, develop emotional intelligence.
Oh, from the person who was being emotionally unintelligent. And tell me
I,
about, I don't want you to relive these lies or
yeah,
anything, but tell me about some of the things that are said, because I am telling you this is so parallel, because
yeah.
I experienced something similar. I had people trying to kill my influence because I was pushing this particular school to do better. Now here in
Yeah.
Ohio, we get graded, A, B, C, D, or E on how our school performs, and that's all based on one standardized test. It's a whole big political mess. And so one
Mm-hmm.
data point, which is not best practice in education, but the lawmakers think it is. And so we get to this thing where I'm the school is performing better than every school in the district, partially because of the work of the principal before me. And then I was able to slide in and continue that work. And so I'm pushing because the school was outperforming, but the students were still 2 years behind where
Mm,
Ohio said they needed to be. And
okay.
so I'm like, look, we got to keep it moving, So I'm like, I'm the guy that says that's why I'm called an igniter. I'm passionate.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go, let's put the
Yeah.
fire on.
Yeah.
We can't approach this thing so casually. We only have so many instructional minutes in a day. We only see them for so long in the school
Yeah.
year. Let's make the most of the time. And because I was pushing, I had, and it's funny how it's not everybody, it's that small majority that seem to make a whole lot of noise. So I
Yeah.
had some people try to kill my influence by creating lies about me,
Mm,
and telling untruths.
mm,
Literally, I
yeah.
was and I've never said this online publicly, so I'll just say this one. So I was with my daughter, who's an adult, and we went out to eat and just had a conversation, having daddy daughter time. The next, I would say, and that was on like a Friday. Come to work Monday, a teacher tells me, "Hey, where were you at this weekend?" I'm like, "Oh, I was just hanging, with my wife. We went, saw the jazz thing, whatever." And I didn't even mention the time with my daughter because I just thought
Hmm.
the teacher was making conversation.
Right.
This teacher shared with me that another teacher started a rumor that I was having an affair because I was seen with another woman. And I'm like, first of all, could you tell the age of I know my daughter is an adult, but couldn't you tell that she's in her early 20s? I mean, like I'm a young guy, but I'm not in my 20s. And so, but it was all about
Oh,
trying to discredit
yeah.
my leadership. And so, and as a leader, I'm like, I'm not chasing down anybody's rumor. I don't have time for that. And so I was like, look, if you want to know where if I was with my wife or not, and the funny thing is they got the day wrong too. So I was like, if you want to know if I was with my wife on that day, you can check her social media because she took I don't know how many selfies at the jazz concert. And so we were definitely there.
Wow.
But I'm like, that's my daughter. And
Wow.
because you saw, it could have been anybody, it could have been a relative, it could have been anybody. But because they were fishing, they tried to take something to put their own spin on it to discredit me so that it would cause me to back off of what I was doing. And so I mean, that sounds so familiar to what you were experiencing. So when you were saying they were
Gosh.
lying on you and, trying to kill your influence, can you
Yeah.
dig a little deeper into that and tell us how you felt, but also what was your response?
Yeah. So firstly, I'm sorry that happened to you. And that's just, I'm just shaking my head the whole time you're telling me. But that's a really perfect example of someone trying to dismantle you.
Yes.
The discrediting of your reputation is a way to dismantle you. And that's completely a toxic behavior. What you're, first of all, doing outside of work means like it's not relative.
Hmm.
So thank you for sharing that. That's a really great story to share. the feeling that I had, I knew she was trying to push my buttons. She knew that I was coaching, that I was very much into the personal development space. I've been writing online for a long time and posting on LinkedIn. So I knew she was going for kind of the gut,
Yeah.
to comment on my emotional intelligence. I'm an empath and I'm also an HSP and a highly sensitive person. So my emotional intelligence, is quite high, and I've always had that. And I've also worked really hard on my emotional intelligence to
Right.
be a great leader. And I've received many, positive reviews from my team in past. So to say I was upset, is an understatement, even though, again, I knew it totally wasn't true. And like when I
Mm.
would tell my husband or tell my friends, like literal laughter from them people. But this was going on, company record. And then, there was all these different things. Also, I had to change my management style, literally change it.
Wow.
And I said, why am I changing my management style? I have this really high performing team. And again, I'm getting positive feedback from them. So it was a lot of personal things. She knew that I had been doing this a long time. I knew what I was doing. Was also that insecurity with the people pleaser, and threatened
Yes.
by my performance, my ability to do my job really well. And so it did become personal, and it didn't matter what I said in this performance plan review about how much we had accomplished and everything. Even when I had all the metrics, it was thrown out the window based on her just trying to bring me down. And what was really difficult was that, when I wanted this, I refused to sign the performance plan. And just actually, that's an
Mhm.
interesting tidbit. You don't actually have to, like in my company, the HR was like, okay, you can not sign it and that's fine. And so I was not able to get it thrown out, but I did make my point clear. And unfortunately, HR was not very helpful in this situation overall. But it was just, again, I was dismantled. I was truly upset. I had worked my butt off for this position, and I had done my best.
Mm. So, so they
Yeah.
tried to dismantle you, and that is,
Mhm.
and what you said about being on LinkedIn and being in this space for a while, and they
Mhm.
knew it. I'm telling you, that rings so many bells. I remember in this particular school district, and it's funny, when I first arrived, I was so celebrated because people
Mhm.
knew my had heard about what I've done in other
Wow.
schools, and I had been in a charter school network for a while,
Okay.
working in these charter schools, and then went to traditional public, so people heard about what I had done and how I turned around schools. And I remember my first year, people were like, you're too skilled. Are you quitting at the end of this year? And I was like, no, this is where I want to be,
Mm.
because I enjoyed it. And it felt like, and it made me coin the term artificial culture, because on the
Mm.
surface, it felt like a supportive, family, fun place to be. And people were like, hey, I heard you have a business on the side, which is a separate story, because I thought I had a business, because I had a website and was doing Facebook lives, but it really wasn't a business.
Okay.
But because I had stuff out there
Yeah.
online, and I was talking about leadership, already. So, people were congratulating me, and, saying, oh, this is great that you do that. And, we're grateful that you're here, and that kind of thing. It went from that to, who does he think he is? I mean, somebody
Mhm.
literally went to my website at the time and saw that I saw a coaching package and saw a speaking, and because I was out there as a speaker,
Yep.
and they were
Yep.
like, who does he think he is?
Yeah.
Literally was their comment to other teachers, not
Oh,
knowing that,
wow.
of course, some of them would come tell me. And so that gut check, where they try to not only kill your influence in the environment, but then try to kill your influence outside the environment.
Oh,
I mean, that is
I
that
you're
is a trip, is
Yeah,
all
it
I
is a
can say.
trip. It is a trip. It is a trip. My social media was being stalked, um, and I had evidence of that. And
Wow.
I knew it was really creepy. It was so creepy. And I'm one of those people, anyone I work with, if they have a side hustle, I say go for it, because I think if
Yes.
there's anything we've learned in the pandemic life is that nothing is secure or safe. So
Mhm.
you need to have your multiple streams of income. You got to have different interests. And I've always had a side hustle since I was probably 16 years old, done multiple things. So yeah, by knowing what I was doing online, that was also, some of her comments were directly in an attack of that lane of me, because I've been very
Wow.
passionate about personal development work for a long, long time. So then there was that moment where I was like, okay, this isn't really going to work. Because as soon as I went back to working, the workload was insane. But also then I went back to not sleeping, having the anxiety attacks, feeling like garbage. And I thought, am I really available to feel like garbage every day? And the answer
Wow.
was no. Yeah.
Wow. So how did you know it was time to exit? Because we've been on here for a minute, and we
Yeah.
could talk for a long. I feel
Yeah.
like we could talk for a long time about this
Yeah.
subject. So how did you know it was time for you to exit versus fight it out? And what steps did you take to exit?
So I knew I had to get out, and I was trying to figure out how. And so I will say I spoke to multiple lawyers, because I needed to know my legal rights. And one of the things people do is they make decisions without knowing what was happening. I had made a formal toxic workplace claim that had gone through
Mhm.
the system in the company. It was very quickly, the case was closed really quickly in a very suspicious way.
Mm.
That's all I can say about that. And then
Oh boy.
speaking to different lawyers, I was trying to get a feel for what my options were. And so in the end, I didn't go through a legal route, but I will say that I found a path of least resistance that worked for me. That's kind of all I can really say about that. But I did end up resigning. But what was interesting is when I was going through the process of speaking to legal people, at one point, the HR manager said, we should have a conversation, a meeting with me, HR, your toxic boss, and then the head of the company who was in support of my toxic boss. So I said, okay, you
Mhm.
want me to be in a room, in a Zoom with by myself with the person who I've just made a toxic boss claim about. And I'm thinking, well, that doesn't sound right. And when I ran it by my lawyer I was speaking to, he was like, okay, the fact that they think it's okay for you to go into this meeting is proof that they are not taking your claim seriously. Why would they put you in that situation?
Exactly.
That is just awful. And I was like, oh, thank gosh. So this is again why you need outside counsel. And so through a whole bunch of so my toxic workplace claim kind of went nowhere. And that was then again, I was just trying to figure out which way to exit. And I did find a way to resign. And I did resign in May of this year. And I am going to say it was really hard, because I have to say, I loved so much about my job. I loved so much of my team. I was leaving a very nice corporate position.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. So for anyone who just hears this and thinks, well, I just walked away, I struggled. Even when I had the email sitting there to resign, I sat there for half an hour before I clicked send, but I had actually spent days and almost a year since I had had the new boss thinking about this. And I was nauseous, sick to my stomach. My husband just kept saying, send it, send it, send it.
Press the button.
Just go. And he was like, I can't see you go through this anymore. Like, it has to end. And that was what it was. It was like, it had to end, because
Yeah.
life is too short. It was just not going to get any better. And I really wanted to believe I could change some of the culture, but really the cards were stacked up against me. And there is
Mhm.
that point where you need to know it's time to go. And I made that decision. And I haven't posted it, but I've been thinking about posting it. Is as soon as I hit the send button on the email, I videotaped myself in what my reaction was and how I felt. And I wanted to remember, first of all, I wanted to remember the courage that it took for me to send it,
Yes.
because I, again, had a great job in many ways. And I felt like I was giving up. I couldn't help but feel like I was giving up a little bit, that fighter in me. But and I just wanted to remember that moment, and I've replayed it since, and it's like, wow, like it was a pivotal moment. But I realized that I was putting myself first, and again, I was no longer available to work for this really toxic person.
Wow, that is awesome. And I just want to applaud you for your courage, because I know firsthand what it feels like, because I have that same fighter personality, and I
Yeah.
know the feeling of failure that tries to come on you when you recognize the best way to win is to leave the situation. And so I really applaud you for that and really stepping into what you're doing. And it is so funny that even though you were in a self-help and personal development space for a while, but it was that thing that really has become your main message for for the people you help. And it is so funny that it happens that way. That the thing that tries to crush us the most, and it
Yeah.
seems like that's the thing that end up launching and propelling us into a greater space to help other people. So,
Absolutely. It was
yeah.
not really expected to be talking about this so much, to be honest. I really had no conscious thought of talking about this. But if I could reflect on some of my career and my jobs, I was always that person that would find the person that was sad and unhappy in the workplace and
Mm,
try and make their lives better and figure out a way for them to either navigate the position they're in or transition to a new job. I really was always that person. I can't tell, I just think back and I thought, oh, I was already trying to help that person get a new job, new positions. So it makes sense that I'm kind of in this space now. But when I was going through this experience, I never thought, wow, this is something I'm going to talk about openly. Like I just had a few friends
yes.
that I was talking to it over, on the phone, and that was it. And it's a bit surreal to find myself in this position, but you know what? I'm just going for it.
Yeah. And I, again, applaud you for it. I applaud you for that. And so,
Thanks.
yeah, we're 42 minutes in. And so, we may have to have another conversation,
Yes, for sure.
and continue this and maybe put it on some other platforms as well. And so, as we round in this part
Yeah.
of the conversation, what final thoughts or advice would you give to somebody who's in that toxic environment,
Hmm.
dealing with a toxic leader, and was in a position of leadership themselves? So you're trying to lead people
Yeah.
while dealing with a toxic leader. And so, and probably like you, they want to fight it out, but are unsure, and it's like you don't know what to do, because there's like a snowball of emotions
Yeah.
that hit you when you're in that situation. So what are some
Hmm.
thoughts or advice that you would share with someone
Sure.
who's in that?
A couple things. The first one is just a really practical one, is that if you are in a situation that's really toxic and there's things coming up, literally document everything. And so you will hear that from any lawyer, anyone. So just keep a record of absolutely everything. That's just the practical stuff. The mindset stuff is really important. And that is really starting to become aware of your value and realize it's not about you. And so trying to pull back and recognize that this toxic person's behavior says nothing about you. And that's really hard, but that is one of the things you have to constantly remind yourself about as you're going through this process, so
Yeah.
that you keep your head above water. It's really, really important to do that. And the journaling part, I was doing a lot of journaling to process what was happening, because I was being triggered. And I have to also be honest, in this whole thing, I was not showing up as my best self on many days because I was so miserable. So that I had to take
Mhm.
responsibility for. But I also wanted to see why I was being so triggered. Partly me being triggered was she was doing the people pleasing behavior, which was part of my past that I didn't want to be a part of, but it was a part of me. So
Yeah.
when I became conscious of that, that was very empowering to see what was really upsetting me about the situation. That really helped me to process. Um, and again, seeking legal counsel should you need it is also some
Mhm.
people dismiss it. They just think, oh, this is no big deal. This is just, I think the most common thing is people minimize the experience. they minimize it into it's no big deal. It's like you don't actually know until you speak to other people, and especially since you speak to people that do this for a living, they
Yeah.
work with these kind of situations. So those are some of my important tips for that.
That's great. That's really good. And I'm so glad that you shared that. And I'm glad that you're in the space where you can talk about this and help other people. While I'm not happy about the situation you went through, I wouldn't
Yeah.
want anybody to experience that. But the fact that you have come out of it in a way that you can still help people, and you've done the work on your heart to keep your, so it didn't damage you, because hurting people hurt people, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes these situations dismantle and hurt us to the point where we start hurting people and repeat the cycle with somebody else. And so and so I am so glad that you didn't allow this to change your heart and change who you are, change the leader that you are. And so, yeah, this was a
Mm,
great conversation. So if somebody
thank
wanted to
you.
keep in contact with you, what are the ways that they can do that?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Alana Ruoso. And I also have alanaruoso.com. Tons of free resources there, videos, blog, all that good stuff. And I really encourage people to reach out to me with their story if they feel like they need to share it. To your point at the beginning of our conversation, just talking about this is really important. And since I've started speaking on it, the amount of people that have reached out to me, I love hearing people's stories because I know how healing it is for them. And that is really meaningful to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so awesome. And I'm telling you, we're going to have to talk again, because I
Sure.
prefaced the beginning of this with the fact that, even though you did not work in education per se, you were in a
Yeah.
different industry. This is what educators deal with, and especially
Hmm.
school leaders. And
Hmm.
I didn't recognize this level of challenge or toxic
Hmm.
environment, or just toxic stuff that will come at you as a school leader. You just thought, oh, I have to deal with people
Yes.
personalities, blah, 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 curriculum instruction, the politics and education. I get it. But you don't realize the lengths that people go through when they're trying to dismantle you, because they're leading from a place of that's toxic. And so
Mm.
until you get there, and then you can almost feel like it's isolating. And
Yes.
so for me, I felt, until I read a book, there's a book for educators called Escaping the School Leaders Dunk Tank. And
Oh,
yeah, and it's like
great
full of
title.
people's, yeah, it's full of people's stories and
Oh,
experiences. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, that happened to me. That happened to a friend of
yeah.
mine. That
Yeah.
happened to the superintendent. I mean, I could literally pick out what was happening. And so it's work, like it's conversations like this, but it's work that we do after this conversation that really helps change that. We have to help
100%.
people navigate through the toxic environment, how to preserve their heart, but then also how to leave from a place that they don't create a toxic environment themselves. And so
Yeah.
I say all that to say I really appreciate you being on today. Definitely going to keep in contact. We're going to have to stay connected, do some stuff together, and yeah, and really not just continue this conversation, but really do some other things to help people who may be in that space. And
I
so,
appreciate this so much, the conversation and what you're also doing. And your insights have also really helped me today. So thank you for that.
all right, thank you. All right, so that's it, everybody, for this bonus session of the principal's office. Feel free to join me. Remember to comment, to like, to share this video, because I know some of you are probably still in school or just getting out, and so watching the replay. So feel free to comment, like, and share. Now remember, in just 25 minutes or so, I will be live again talking
Oh, wow.
about yeah.
Busy day.
Yes, I'll be live again talking about the next topic, which is the best professional development really down the hall? And then you can
Mm,
join me on Clubhouse at 6:10 p.m. Eastern time to continue the conversation about the best professional development. And so again, Alana, thank you so much. This was
thank
great.
you.
We're definitely going to continue to chat. All right,
Absolutely.
so everybody, see you guys later. Have a
Take
great one.
care.